Alright, so here we go. We've got the warm-up on the board. Everybody should have their notes out, pencils in hand, and start working on these three very easy problems. Here's an old song. If you don't know it by now, you really need to study. And probably pay attention in class too. So I don't know about you guys, but this disease hit really hard this morning. I'm hearing a lot of voices. Does that mean you guys are working? Hmm. Hmm.
Good morning, Schoenbar. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There will not be a drama club meeting today after school. Art club is canceled as well. However, Dungeons and Dragons will meet in his maintenance room from 2:30 to 4. Battle of the Books meet in Mr. Panino's room during 8th grade homeroom. Please check in with other teachers before you go there so you're not marked absent. Thank you. Bye.
Hey guys, look on the board.
Still hear voices when the room should be silent. Do you see the interesting trick for the second one?
Not really.
Okay. On the second one, I can turn 75 into 25 by dividing by 3. Which means that I can turn 100 into x by dividing by 3. So 100 divided by 3, we know that as 33 and 1/3. So I just converted it. You could use the butterfly method. You could say that this is 25 over x is equal to, I can reduce this to 3/4. Right? 4 times 25 for one part of the butterfly. So that would be 100. X times 3 for the other part of the butterfly. 3x. X is equal to 100 over 3. Isn't that the exact same thing that we just did? So there are tricks besides just following the exact method that we've been taught. At this point, we should have the method that I taught mastered. If you don't, then you haven't been doing your work. There's no ifs, ands, or bottoms around that. It's you have not been doing your work. So that's not on me. I've done everything that I can to get you guys to do it, so it's up to you. You can lead a horse to water, but it's up to you to do the work, to learn. Okay, for this third one, it's still kind of relatively new. We distribute the -2, and we're going to distribute the 3. So for the -2, -2 times x is -2x. -2 times -4 is +8. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 5 is 15. Then we combine like terms. I have a -2x and a +3x. Opposites subtract, so I'd be left with 1x. I have an 8 and I have a 15. Adding those together, I get 23. So I have x plus 23. I do not combine the x and the 23 because that's like combining orange juice and bleach. No matter what you try to use it for, it ruins it. So don't do it. Don't combine unlike things.
Mr. O'Neill, it was plus on the actual problem, or it was minus on the actual problem up there. It wasn't plus.
Yes. Negative times a negative is a
Positive.
Thanks for keeping an eye out for me. Alright, with that out of the way, today we're going to move on to 5.2, which was solving two-step equations.
It was not.
Yeah, we're not doing the homework right now. We're going straight into the next lesson. Now, the next lesson is about solving two-step equations. In other words, we're going to solve equations that are in very simple formats so we can kind of get the gist of how to solve equations in general. The main ideas are the same no matter how many steps there are in the equation. You want to isolate your variable on one side and get everything else to the other. So let's start with a simple word problem. Let's say that Nala and two friends spend $21 at the movies. So Nala and two friends spend $21 at the movies. Obviously, this was before the pandemic. How could they figure out how much each movie ticket costs? Okay, so they also bought popcorn. So they bought the 3 tickets. And I really don't like how this book doesn't have all the information in the word problem itself. It kind of has like a graphic and doesn't tell you much, even in the word problem, about the graphic. It just has a graphic there and then expects you to figure it out, which I find to be wrong. Anyway, it has 3 tickets, and then we also have a box of popcorn. Yes, corny jokes. They're really poppin'.
303.
And that particular one is $6. So we know that the total cost was $21. And that's got to be equal to the 3 tickets plus the box of popcorn. So we would put it together from our previous, from our previous lesson. We learned how to take words from a word problem and write down an equation. Now we're actually going to be using those equations. We need to solve the equation for the unknown, for the variable. In this case, our variable is t. So I got to get the t all by itself. So the first thing I ask is, what's hanging out with a t? What's hanging out with the t? And we'd say, okay, things that are hanging out with a t. We've got this 3, and we've got this positive 6. And we want to get rid of those things. And the way we get rid of things in algebra is we undo them. So if I'm adding something, to unadd something, I would subtract. If I was subtracting, to unsubtract something, I would add. If it's multiplying, to unmultiply, I would divide. And to undivide, I would multiply. So from here, what I would also do is make things a little bit more formal to make sure that problems such as dyslexia can be taken care of pretty easily. So I'm going to rewrite this equation as 21 is equal to 3t and then plus 6. You notice how there's like a lot of space in between everything? And that's because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a few lines. I have a solid line down the center to differentiate between the 2 sides of the equations. And this is dictated to us because of that beautiful thing called an equal sign. The equal sign tells us that these 2 sides are equal to each other. And so it's kind of like having a border, an east-west border. And then from there, I have one category for t and one category for my positive 6. Because they're different terms. They're not like terms. And it's like tickets and popcorn. Try eating tickets and tell me how delicious they are. Try putting popcorn into a machine to get it to give you access to a room. It doesn't quite work. If you go out to the ticket counter and they say, okay, tickets please, and you hand them a handful of popcorn, they're probably not going to let you into the theater. Same thing if you try to eat a whole box full of tickets. I don't think that would be very nutritious. Don't recommend. So we got to keep them separate. And when we keep them separate, we can start looking at how do I get rid of things. So the first thing that I would get rid of would be in the reverse order of operations. Do you guys remember what the order of operations was?
Gemma.
Right. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, addition. So when evaluating, when I plug in numbers, I go this way. So that would be the evaluate. But when solving, we go in the reverse order. So we want to get rid of all the addition first. So the addition in this case is the plus 6. So how do I unadd 6 to something? We subtract it. And what we do to one side, we must do to the other to keep things balanced. So if I take 6 away on the right, I also have to take 6 away on the left. So 21 minus 6 is 15. So I'm left with 15 on the left. The 3t, I didn't do anything to it, so it stays around. And then 6 minus 6 is what? 0. Do I bother writing that there's nothing here? Or I could just leave nothing there, right? So I'm just going to leave nothing there. Now I have 3t is equal to 15. So what do I have to do? Well, I have to unmultiply the 3, right? Because the 3 is hanging out with a t, and we're on to the multiplication step. So I have to get rid of all the multiplication over here. Well, to unmultiply by 3, I would divide by 3. And what I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other. The 3's cancel. We're left with t. On the other side, we have 15 divided by 3, which is 5. Next, I ask myself, Mr. O'Neill, is there anything else hanging out with t? And I could say, yeah, there's an invisible 1 in front of it, but do I care about that? No. No, I don't, because all things have an invisible 1 in front of them for a multiplier. It's also being divided by an invisible 1. Do I bother worrying about that one? And the answer is no, because all things are being divided by an invisible 1. And if I had to worry about those things, then it would create an infinite loop. And we don't like infinite loops. Those are kind of bad and sad. It makes you go mad. So you're a mad lad? But are you sad? Good, because sad is just a fad. And I don't want you to be a mad lad who's sad fad.
Now I'm really mad now.
Well, don't be a cad, and let's get back to work. So, since the 5 is equal to t, and the t is by itself, we can say that the system is solved. We can say that 5 equals t is the solution to this equation. But what does that mean? What does t equal 5 mean? Well, if we go back to the original, it asked us about the 3 tickets, right? How much did the 3 tickets cost? Well, how much does a ticket cost?
$5.
So I'd say each ticket was $5.
That's a lot of money.
That's actually super cheap for movie tickets. Super cheap. In places that I've been, I've seen movie tickets up to $15 each. But those were really cool movie theaters because they had like big old reclining chairs.
They have vibrating chairs.
Yeah, it had vibrating chairs, right? And then it had like huge arms with giant holes for your popcorn and your sodas, right? And so like even I would be like kind of tiny in there. I'd look like a little kid in these giant chairs. And in fact, they were big enough that my wife and I could snuggle in them while watching a movie. Not exactly, because
What do you mean they don't need calories? You don't know what I'm like.
Not a. It has to really confirm that it's not a kid.
Science class in
Oh yeah, you gotta look like science.
and no, we don't do naughties like that in the theater. That's wrong. Poor kids. Minds are always in the gutter.
You guys are worried about reproduction. Well, nobody sells in Minecraft.
Yes, I will agree.
My phone arrived here on February 2nd. I'm tracking it on my iPad. I'm tracking on the practice one on my iPad.
All right, silence in 3, 2, 1. I'm still hearing voices. Thank you. So now we've got another example. This example is about a card that had some money on it, and then they went to this place called Spotify, I think. And they downloaded some music, and the music cost $1.29 for every download. So their gift card started out with $21.61 on it. They bought some music, and then their resulting balance was $10. So as concerned parents were wondering how many music songs did this particular person download. So we need to solve for this letter. Solve for the unknown. So again, we're going in reverse order of operations, and so instead of writing it as Gemma, we could just write it as a Meg. Because Meg was one of my wife's friends in college. And we're just looking for a Meg, not the Meg, just a Meg. No, not a megalodon. Just a Meg. So from here, again, I can draw a line where the equal sign is to be able to tell the two different sides. And then I can also put a dotted line to represent the two different types of things that we have in our equation. Please remember that the sign goes with the number. So even though this minus sign is way over here, it actually goes with this number over on the right. Because hashtag
Oh my god, Winter.
Don't worry, Ender, we will make sure that all of your employers pay you in negative dollars. That was winter? I'm sorry, Ender. Don't worry, winter, we will make sure that we always pay you in negative dollars. My apologies, Ender. You're a great kid. Most of the time. Alright, here we go. From here, we need to get rid of the addition portion first. So the addition portion would be this 21.61. So I would subtract 21.61 from both sides. On the left, they cancel. Be left with 0. On the right, 10 minus 20. Excuse me. 10 minus 21.61. We could try doing the borrow thing, but that's not really going to work very well. Instead, we should just realize that opposites subtract. And so 21 minus 10 is 11. So I have 11.61 over here. But it's going to be a negative 11.61. And then that negative 1.29d, nothing changed, so it's still negative 1.29d. Now, from this point, we still have to solve for the d, in which case we're going to be looking at multiplication. So to unmultiply, I would divide. So I'm going to divide by negative 1.29. On the left-hand side, the negative 1.29 is going to cancel. I'm going to be left with the thing that I was trying to solve for. And on the right, I've got something that's a little bit complicated. I do know that a negative divided by a negative is the same as a negative times a negative, which is a positive. So I'm going to have a positive number of songs at the end. Which makes sense because I don't know how to download negative songs. Well, actually, I do know how to download negative songs. They're anything that starts with R and ends with P and has an A in the middle.
Winter just went stupid and squeezed Sahar's waterball all over everything but him. No. Everything but me. Sahar and books. Everything but me. Sahar and the books. I know. No, I'm crying.
Yeah, I hear.
Well, thank you for the extra water. The water is really hot. Yeah, I know. Let's go play football.
How am I supposed to be my favorite subject now? Oh god.
See, Liz, you got everything but me. Oh, you got everything fine. Thanks for reminding me. What's just in mine? Yeah, I forgot.
Thank you. So obviously we would use long division in this case, and it turns out that 9 works perfectly. And so how many songs did this particular person download? Yeah, that's right. They downloaded 9 songs. Alright, we're going to do one more example and then call it, and you guys can start working on your homework. And this one deals with our good friends. So this one is trying to figure out how many trumpet players there are in a band, or just how many people are in the band in total. For this particular band, they were extremely trumpet heavy, and they said that the number of trumpeteers in the band was equal to 1/4 of the band plus 2. And they know that they had 18 total players that were playing trumpets. So we're going to use this to figure out how many members in the band there were. So to do this, we use the same technique that we did before. We try to isolate our variable by using the reverse order of operations. We get rid of the addition, then the multiplication, then the exponents, and then finally the grouping symbols. So for this one, I think the first thing I want to do is subtract 2 from both sides. This eliminates the addition portion and leaves it with 1/4 of the band being equal to 16 players. Now from here we want to undo the multiplication. We want to undo multiplying by 1/4. But the real easy trick to do this is to take the reciprocal and multiply. Or, as I'm used to telling you guys, just flip and multiply. So I take the fraction and I flip it. That's what's called the reciprocal. So note, I'll put a little asterisk here. When you flip a fraction, it is called the reciprocal. So what I would do is I would take the reciprocal and I would multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/4, I flip it, it becomes 4/1. So what I do to one side, I must do to the other. And when I do that, on the left-hand side, things work out nicely because the 4 cancels with the 4, the 1 cancels with the 1, and we're just left with B. On the right-hand side, we would have to be multiplying a whole number by a fraction. When we do that, we divide by the bottom and then multiply by the top. So 16 divided by 1 is 16. And what we're really looking at is 16 times 4. And if you can't do this in your head, feel free to do it off to the side. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 1 is 4, 5, 6. So it ends up being 64. There are 64 members of this particular band. (18) of which play the trumpet. Are there any questions about how to solve a two-step equation? Okay. It's very similar to what we've been doing all year long. We've actually been solving two-step equations and similar ones this entire school year. We just haven't realized what it was. And putting it this late into the school year, I feel like is a disservice, because this is the foundational skill, one of the foundational skills of all of algebra, and should have been pretty much like one of the first 3 lessons that we went over. We should have been doing this before we went over fractions, before we went over proportions. Okay. Which leads us to the end of today and homework time. No, in this case we're going to do all, because the problems are super easy. Super easy. And we do need the reps. We need the repetition. We need the practice. So I would recommend doing all of them. And looking through them, they all look pretty easy. So it shouldn't be too hard. Just remember to follow the reverse order of operations, and you'll never get into trouble. It's easy as pie. And everybody knows how easy pie is, right? You draw a vertical line, then you draw another vertical line, then you draw a squiggly line. Ta-da! Easy as pie.
What flavor is this? None.
Blueberry.
That's not flavor.
It's 3.14 flavored.
Ah, makes sense.
Yes, it is. Why are you calling ice flavor? Yeah, it is. You're calling with ice. How do you have me? I can go. You're the only person with ice in your water.
Kobe doesn't have ice. Yeah, that's what I said I love you. Yeah, I love you. It is you stop me like that.
Oh, please stop throwing stuff at each other.
Yes. As a reminder, you are being recorded. Oh, dear Lord. Another day.